Good morning, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Apologize for our late start. I, like many other Denverites this morning, had carpool, and it was a very slow carpool morning with the snow in the streets. Huge thanks to our Dottie team who has the streets clear this morning, but people are still all driving cautiously and slowly as they should be, so we are very grateful for that. We are delighted to be here for an exciting announcement about our trash services and our recycling services and our compost services around the city. We know there are a lot of big things moving in the world and in our city. We also know that one of our core responsibilities is to make sure we are delivering high quality public services every single day on the things that matter the most, like does your trash get picked up on time? And does your compost get picked up, and does your recycling get picked up? And so we're excited to announce a couple of changes today. The first and most exciting one is that we are announcing a dramatic acceleration of our rollout of composting citywide. As you know, we have about 30,000 maybe bins outside that are compost bins. We had prepared to do rollout over the next about 16 months, not just because getting the bins out was difficult, but because of actually having the drivers and the vehicles we needed to make that happen. Was about making sure we could both deliver the bins and deliver regular services. And so we are excited to announce today that we will be rolling that out so that we have every Denverite will have access to composting by March 15th. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline of what's going to happen and how those changes will work. We will do two things. One is, in order to make that possible, we've looked at the data about what we're seeing on our recycling, and we have found out two things, which is that right now, most Denverites are only using about half of their recycling capacity, which means we are running recycling trucks every single week to pick up bins that are only half full. And so that's two things. It's both not a great use of time and resources. It is also not a net great impact on the environment. Right now, when we run trucks every single week for recycling, that's an extra 170,000 miles of traffic that we have on our trucks, and these trucks are the least fuel efficient trucks in the Denver fleet. And so if you're talking about 3 miles per gallon, the net impact on emissions is actually higher to run weekly recycling than it is to actually pick up that recycling. So we'll do two changes. One is we will move recycling to biweekly. So since people are using about half their bin space, that means there's enough for us to be able to pick up every other week on a biweekly schedule. And that will allow us to use those trucks and those people to deploy towards a full weekly rollout of compost. And so here are the most important dates for you to know about, and you'll see them here. January 6th, we will start the process of biweekly recycling at that stage. By January 10th, we'll have everyone be able to opt in for who would like to get a compost bin. We will then do an incredible surge through January and February to get all of those compost bins delivered all over the city so that everyone is ready to be able to have a complete rollout of compost by March 15th. So those are the big events coming over the next couple of months. For those folks that then, after you bring composting on, want to adjust your cart size or your cart volume, we'll start taking requests in the spring if you want to size down your trash carts because you now are using compost so efficiently and so effectively. So I'm going to give it over to Amy Ford from Dottie to talk a little bit about what we're doing here. I'll just add one more thing, which is we are really excited for this both to be great regular service. So now folks will have compost picked up every single week, have trash pick up every single week, have recycling pick up every other week. Those are all, we think, industry-leading standards for cities around the country. And we also know that now folks will adjust to recycling every 2 weeks. We think the easiest practice there is break down your boxes. For anyone that is using a full box of recycling, we find that is generally because they have boxes that are not broken down. And so the most important people to get that message are my two 16-year-old children, so I will make sure they get it first. But we think this is going to be a great way to both reduce our impact on the environment through trucks, but increase our ability to gather more compost and to get high quality service to all of our residents of the city. So huge thank you to Amy Ford and her team from Dottie for all the work they've done. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about the how this will happen and the details and why we think it's so important. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. You know, when we talk about the why, let us dig back into that just really quickly. The city has incredibly ambitious goals when we think about how we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, how we think actually about diverting our waste in the area. And when we think about it right now, one of the things that we're doing is we've actually been doing a pretty good job. As we shifted ourselves to variable-based pricing and volume-based pricing, what we saw an increase in our diversion rates. So we started an increase in what we were doing in our compost, and we saw an increase in what we were doing in our recycling. In fact, when you think about recycling as a whole and you think about diversion as a whole, we as a community have the capacity to divert up to 75% of our trash. That's about 50% on our compost side and about 25% on our recycling side. Diversion equals improvements in regards to our environment, our impacts on our environment, and what we're capable of doing is how we live in a green community. When we look at how we're doing right now, in fact, we're close to 20% of diversion with our recycling. But for our compost, we're more like 6%. And so we think about that 6%. This is one of the reasons why we're so active and so engaged in wanting to accelerate the compost rollout. You guys have been asking for us, you're wanting it, we want to be able to deliver that to you in a much more accelerated schedule than what we've been able to do in the past. And what we realized with that is it required some adjustments and some thinking about how we look at our services as a whole. And so to reiterate, I think what the mayor commented about earlier was the schedule of this and how this rolls out. So as you know, right now, we will be starting on January 6th with the beginning of biweekly recycling. What that does is it effectively frees up our trucks and others to be able to actively start moving on our compost efforts. And so as we do that January 6th turnover, we'll be continuing to collect your signups, which we will be taking here now pretty much starting today for those people who want to opt into the compost. And just so you understand, right now we have rolled out compost to about 50,000 people in our community as we speak. We're going to be rolling it out to the remaining areas and districts, which are mostly Central Denver, East Denver, Southeast Denver, and Southwest Denver as we continue this process. We anticipate a lot of you might want compost bins, so we're actually hopeful that we'll be able to increase our diversion rates, increase, in fact, what we collect on our compost to about 55,000 tons annually. That, again, is also a heavy impact when it comes to our emissions reduction, because the reality is the things that we compost, food scraps, yard waste, if we throw them in the trash, they create methane. The more that we divert them to compost, what we actually do is reduce the methane production, and then we turn around and we actually create something that we can use, which is more compost, which we can use as fertilizer and other things. This virtuous cycle of how we do all of this. So the dates again to remember. January 6th, we start on biweekly recycling. January 10th, we're asking you to put in your requests to be able to receive your compost bins. Starting there really early in February, we will start that rollout of compost bins, and by March 15th, we'll be done. We'll be done 9 months ahead of schedule, making sure that you have the access to the services that you're looking for, and that we are also able to provide the customer service that we think is so critically important, really, to keep Denver moving. So we appreciate it, and we'd love to take any questions that you guys might have about how we're planning on this. And should we reiterate, break down your boxes? But let me do this and let me say this, that for those people who are very interested and think they are absolutely uber recyclers, the access to a second box will very much be there. So if you want a second box, you can, if you want a second bin for recycling, please do request a second bin for recycling, and we will help you out with that. The more recycling, the better.
Again, happy to open for questions in a minute. I think we're really excited about the fact this is going to be better city services faster. We're going to accelerate the citywide rollout of compost by almost 9 months to a year. That's great for everyone across the city. And we're going to improve our impact on the environment. We're actually going to dramatically get more waste diverted into compost, and we're going to actually have less impact on the roads and climate through our current recycling adjustments. We think this is both win-win for the city and for the climate. Very excited to get to work. So happy to open it up to any questions folks have for me or for Amy.
Does the pool reporter get to ask any questions?
Great. Well, love it. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a fantastic Thursday morning in the snow.
Actually, we do.
Yes, por supuesto.
So we are here for Univision Channel.
Sí.
So it's possible algo en español.
Por favor, hay unas palabras interesantes en español aquí esta mañana. Let's see, compost es compost en español, ¿verdad? ¿Es el mismo? ¿Y recycling es recycling?
Reciclaje.
Reciclar. Ok, ya estoy listo. Gracias por la ayuda. Gracias. Hoy es un día importante porque anunciamos unos cambios que vamos a hacer aquí en la ciudad sobre la basura. Lo que vamos a cambiar es que ya vamos a colectar la reciclando cada 2 semanas, pero vamos a empezar por la primera vez arreglando compost cada semana. Entonces lo que la gente tiene que saber es que el 6 de enero empezamos promoviendo recycling cada otra semana, y luego el 15 de marzo vamos a empezar por toda la ciudad colectando compost. Entonces puedes venir a nuestro website para para poner tu nombre, para recibir tu compost bin y vamos a traerlo en el febrero y marzo. Gracias por todo. Anybody else? All right, we will be around if there are any other side questions, but thank you all so much for being here and for your patience in the snow. Great to see you.